Like what role does meditation or mindfulness or the practice of growing one's awareness play in this? Because often, like in psychology, it can often seem at ends to any kind of, not necessarily spiritual practice, but meditation can often be seen as spiritual, but ultimately it's about greater self-reflection and greater self-awareness. What role can this play in terms of our relational literacy and building our kind of ability to be better relationship people, relationshipers, relators. There you are. That's the word. Yeah.
Communicators.
There we go.
I mean, they go hand in hand, you know, they really, and it depends on how you approach them. Right. Yeah. But really, the more, like Sam Harris says, the most important thing any of us can do is, you know, practice, like create a healthy mind, you know, it's make sure that your mind is healthy as it can be. That's the way that he describes it. And I think that there's a lot of truth in that. It's, you know, if we haven't taken care of ourselves and built self-awareness, you know, learned how to build self-awareness, learned how to become more mindful, practice mindfulness, it's going to be harder for us to practice the formula. You know, if you just think about it, the more cluttered your mind is, the more you're not reflecting on yourself, right? So if you're not self-aware, for instance, you know, you're less likely to recognize when you're in contempt, and you're more likely then to act out that contempt on somebody else. So the practice of mindfulness, the practice of self-awareness and self-reflection, developing this inner observer, and beyond that. But let's just talk about the inner observer. That's a part of many forms of mindfulness practice anyway, you know, where you build this sort of observational muscle inside of yourself to start really noticing what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're needing, you know, throughout the day, so that you don't get hijacked by your thoughts, feelings, and emotions, and then act out on the people around you, who then will act out in response. And so this is a really important, I think, piece of the process. And, you know, for me, certainly meditation practice is incredibly, incredibly important. And then also vice versa. We can become more mindful by becoming more relational. You know, I think of it as relational mindfulness, where, you know, in order to practice the formula, it does require you to slow down. It requires you to be present. I see healthy relationality as in some ways a spiritual practice, because to really be healthy relationally, you need to be in a greater place of presence. You need to just stop and tune into what's happening in the moment.
Mutual understanding, 2 ears, 1 mouth.
That's right. Exactly. That's right. You can't have a healthy interaction if you are not bringing yourself to some degree into a place of curiosity and compassion, you know, and curiosity and compassion are obviously what you're also trying to cultivate when you're practicing mindfulness. So it's very, very important. And, you know, maybe one way to really understand this is to look at the role of dysregulation in the problems in our relationships and also the problems in our world, because they're also interconnected. And have you heard this term before? You're familiar with it? So dysregulation, when you're dysregulated, this means that your nervous system is out of balance. That's all it means. Everybody knows what it feels like to be dysregulated, because we're all in and out of...
You could be stressed, you could be worried, you could be anxious. All these are states of dysregulation.
Yeah,
like we're not in kind of rest and restore and calm and present.
We're in a parasympathetic nervous system.
Exactly. So like when you're regulated, basically your nervous system is balanced, right? You can think about when you're in, again, dysregulation, like most things in life, maybe everything, I don't know, exists on a spectrum, right? You can be extremely dysregulated, which is referred to as being flooded, you know, or you can be mildly dysregulated, you know? So if you think, you know, in your perfect regulation moment, you know, maybe you're like lying in bed reading a book, whatever it may be, you know, that's your like total comfort zone. And then while it's dysregulation, you're just like extremely stressed out. When we're dysregulated, you know, we're basically in a state of fight, flight, or freeze. And what that means is that we are less rational. We have less access to our rational faculties, and we're less connected to our empathy. And of course, this makes sense. When you're dysregulated, your body and mind are experiencing a threat, and you go into survival mode. And like somebody who's drowning is not somebody who's going to be having a political conversation, sophisticated political conversation. They're just grabbing for anything that floats. So when we're more self-aware, we're better able to notice when we're dysregulated. And then we're also better able to self-regulate. And we can talk about what that looks like, because it can be an incredible tool for people, to help bring themselves into a place of balance. When we're less self-aware, a lot of people are chronically dysregulated and they don't know it. Or they get dysregulated and they don't know it. And the thing is that dysregulated people dysregulate people.
Yeah.
Dysregulation is contagious. You may have seen this.
Yeah,
Wow.
definitely. Yeah.
Like hurt people.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And dysregulation is contagious for two reasons. One reason is because emotions are contagious. If you're around somebody who has any kind of especially if it's a strong emotion, you're going to probably pick that up to some degree. If you have any amount of empathy, you will start feeling that emotion a little bit. And dysregulation is also contagious because when you're dysregulated, you're more likely to act in ways that are non-relational, to do things that violate the formula. And when you do that, the other person, studies have shown that when somebody's on the receiving end of we can call these toxic behaviors, or toxic communications, that person on the receiving end of the toxic communication is more likely to respond with the toxic communication, and also later in the day to go out and do things that are toxic to other people who had nothing to do with the interaction. So this is what I said earlier. Researchers say these behaviors, they spread like the common cold. When we're more self-aware and when we've learned to regulate through meditation or other means, self-regulate, bring ourselves into a state of regulation, we're much better able to practice the formula. You could know the formula, but if you're not self-aware and you don't realize that you're dysregulated, you might end up just saying oh my God, it's just too hard. And, that's it.
Yeah. Just let it rip. Yeah.
And one of the keys to regulation or one of the many tools, I think, is breath. Typically when one is out of regulation, their breathing is either typically
physiological responses.
Is very heightened. And ultimately, if one can bring your breath down to kind of a calm, larger exhale than inhale, typically you're bringing yourself down to regulation.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. And, you can help regulate others. There's something called co-regulation.
Oh, yeah.
Co-regulation is the process of somebody with a regulated nervous system bringing others into a state of regulation. And
when you meet someone who's really calm and slow, and it's oh my God, I just love their energy because it just
feel like sitting by a warm fire.
Can I bathe in your energy?
Yeah, totally.
That's co-regulation.
Yeah, co-regulation.
I like co-regulation.
Yeah. Remember there was 30 women came to the farm on Saturday. They were doing some spiritual meditation type thing, and they came to the farm, and afterwards I was like, geez, I could bathe in their energy. It was
You felt
so
can I just sit down
can
here
I just sit? Can I just hang out with you guys? I don't really need to talk. Just sit in the same room, because their energy was so calm and lovely. It was really nice.
Healing.
Yeah, but that's a
absolutely
great
co-regulation,
example.
yeah.
Absolutely co-regulation. There are different techniques that people can do. If you're close to a person, you're not, eye contact for many people, not everybody, sometimes physical touch can be co-regulating. But one thing to keep in mind is that very often the dysregulated person is the person who sets the tone. You're around somebody who's dysregulated, and you're like, ugh, your emotions start to spike. But just knowing, being able to identify dysregulation as dysregulation, instead of seeing this person and being like, what a jerk, or, oh, this person is just a hot mess, they're just out of control. Look at them instead and say, oh, this person seems dysregulated, and knowing
my
that.
My wife will say to me, I think you need to go for a run, or you need to go for a walk or something. Your energy is way too big for the room here. You need to go do something. You can't went for dinner or something, that she'll
I'm not
see
sitting
it.
in the same room as you, David.
She'll say, you need to go move. You need to do something to move it.
Yeah, but that's perfect, right? And so knowing how to regulate yourself is huge. You know yourself well enough. But a lot of people, they've sort of developed these coping mechanisms over the years to self-regulate, because we're constantly striving.
With alcohol, or with energy drinks, or chocolate bars, or coffee.
Or it could be porn. It could be all these
or
things.
Any ways of avoiding pain.
Addiction.
All the various means that we have to avoid pain. Food. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. And so dysregulation is one of the things that keeps us out of the formula, unable to practice the formula, or makes it harder to.
Because we're in our survival brain rather than in our aspirational, higher values, moral, integrity, dignity brain.